633. Normative ethics, what does it mean? So normative ethics is a field of ethics that ascribes to the idea that the category that is typically associated with codes of conduct and distinguishing good or acceptable behavior and practice from unacceptable or harmful behavior and practice. This is from Spector in 2016. It applies most to instructional design because the Association of Educational Communication and Technology, the AECT, they label ethics as being a commitment to the individual, a commitment to society, and a commitment to the profession. So Reiser, this is from Reiser and Dempsey in 2018. This applies the most because the idea of it, the idea of normative ethics within instructional design, is essentially the idea that the codes of conduct are good, what is good and what is acceptable behavior need to be followed in all areas, whether it's the individual, the society, and the profession. We are called as instructional designers to start from an ethical base, whether that is to not pursue personal gain or to design in a way that includes all, and to be aware of that as we go through the entire process. We have a responsibility to design and create content that is aimed at providing all students with the most educationally beneficial and therefore inclusive learning experiences and environments. We have to, as educational designers, be constantly aware of the ideas of this, that we need to both have a goal set in mind to make it educationally beneficial, but also to make it inclusive, to make every student in whatever category they're in feel included and feel both like they're getting relevant and authentic learning experiences, but also feel like they are in a safe learning environment that they can embrace and flourish. Normative ethics apply to instructional design. The why is because designers have a real influence on the way of people's behavior, on specific actions, and on forms of interacting with other people, objects, and devices. Designers symbolically dictate how we should use certain items, shape the tastes and needs, and they decide about how our aesthetic style, which enters into our private spaces. This is from Adamek in 2018. If we think about the impact of designers, we could say that it's felt in nearly every aspect of society and culture. So therefore, designers must be ethically aware of their role in shaping society. As instructional designers, we have to consider this at all times as well. Because when we think about what we are doing, we are essentially beginning the foundation of shaping the human mind. Whether this is educating the youth of America or educating any sort of young person or even someone who is advanced in age, we have to think about everything that we do from an ethical standpoint in a way of we are essentially shaping the way people learn. So therefore, we have an ethical responsibility to apply these ethical ideals and these essentially morals and values to what we do. The biblical worldview says a few things about ethics, and we're going to go through the three different categories of it. So within the commitment to the individual, Colossians 3:23 says that whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men. So as followers of Christ, we are called to work for the glory of the Lord and therefore to put aside our desires and work for Him. Now, on a practical standpoint, we are obviously working for men. If you work for any sort of organization, men or women, we're not talking about that. And what we're talking about instead is the idea that our work is for a higher purpose. And therefore, we should hold ourselves to a higher standard in everything we do. And therefore, we should address each individual in the way that the Lord calls us to, with love and to work heartily for each person. The Bible also tells us in Galatians 6:4 from the English Standard Version to let us not test one of his own work, and then his reason to boast will be in himself alone and not in his neighbor. So, in other words, what he's saying, what is being talked about here is that we are called not to boast in ourselves or even to put our work about those who we are trying to help above them or anything about that. Boasting ourselves to others can lead to detrimental consequences. As an instructional designer, we are called to work humbly, and to shape the minds and the ideals of people that are learning through the content and or teaching the content that is designed. So if we spend more time concerned about what we're doing and how amazing boasting in our work, then what we're doing is essentially tearing down the very foundation of what we are told to be. Within commitment to society, Philippians 4:8 tells us, finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there's any excellence, if there's anything worthy of praise, think about these things. So, as people who are both in the field of instructional design and people who are followers of Christ, we are called to think about these things. We're called to pursue that which is honorable to God and honorable to the community that we live in and we work in. So when we aim at creating and we aim at designing any sort of methods of instructions, any sort of content, we have to look at what is honorable, what is true, what is pure, what is lovely, and what is commendable. So therefore, all those different things essentially apply to how we design and how we approach our own design. If something isn't true and we establish that as fact, or we put that out there within the design, it destroys the entire credibility of what we're doing. Within the honorable aspect, if we take from someone else without crediting them correctly through citations or through even just straight plagiarism, then it again undermines our ideals and everything that is ethical within that, and that plays right into whatever is just as well. Uh, all that turns into an issue of the heart. Because if we do not do the first three things, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, it essentially becomes a question of the heart. Because it therefore dilutes or destroys whatever is pure. And that is not lovely. And therefore that's not commendable. So when we think about these things, just like Philippians tells us, we have to, in any sort of thing, think about these things and therefore honor the Lord as we do them and think about it from an ethical standpoint. When we talk about commitment to the profession, Proverbs 22:29 in the English Standard Version tells us, do you see a man skillful in his work? He will stand before kings. He will not stand before obscure men. I believe personally, and I think that the Bible agrees in some ways, that essentially we are all called to work. And we are all called to do different things within work that we are talented at. Everybody has talent in some way, form, or fashion. Everybody has a calling in some way. Listening to that calling and doing those things essentially is what is being mentioned here. If we are skillful in our work, and I believe that the people that are in this within this are, uh, I believe that we will essentially be able to, in some way, form, or fashion, stand before kings. And the biblical perspective of this is that we're not called to work in a way that doesn't glorify God, and we're called to work humbly, but we're also called to work and do the things that we're skilled at. And therefore, the ethical part of it, the profession of it, is essentially to give everything that you have and everything that you are. Um, you often have to think about the idea of being where your feet are and not looking above wherever your station is at that moment. And instead of being in a spirit of apathy or a spirit of judgment or a spirit of essentially of longing or judgment or anything, we instead have to look at it as an idea of, this is where we are, this is what we're called to do, and the Lord has got a plan for us. Have a great day. These are my references.